Back because we did begin the meeting earlier. We've decided to do a little format change and have our in-camera sessions at the very beginning of meetings.
I missed the first part of that.
Oh, okay. Is it working now, Nick? Hopefully so. Yeah? Okay, great. So welcome back, everyone. I was just saying we're resuming our council meeting here tonight at 7 o'clock because we've done a little bit of a formatting change where we're putting our in-cameras at the beginning of meetings so that we could maybe during the winter get home a little bit earlier, a little bit safer. There's been some unsettled weather in December, and so we felt that maybe doing a little shift in the format might be helpful. So we are resuming the council meeting at 7:03 this evening. And I will ask CAO McCulloch to do the roll call of councillors.
Sure.
Yes, sorry. Oh, yes, sorry. Oh, Canada. I was looking for it here and I couldn't find it. So, yeah, sorry. We'll ask everyone to stand if you're able for O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So now I will hand it over to CAO McCulloch for a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. District 1, Deputy Warden Sean Sampson.
Present.
Thank you. District 2, Councillor Michael Digdon.
Present.
Thank you. District 3, Councillor Melanie Sampson.
Present.
Thank you. District 4, Warden Amanda Mombercat.
Present.
Yeah, I'll spit it out here. And District 5, Councillor Brent Sampson.
Present.
Madam Chair, the roll has been called and recorded.
Thank you, Troy. All right, we'll begin with the next item on the agenda, which is items added. Are there any items that folks would like to add? I believe we have one from Councillor Brent Sampson.
Yeah, just add a Christmas greeting.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Sampson. So we'll add Christmas greeting as item number 16.1.
For A, I guess, 69.
Okay. Any other additions? Okay, so hearing none, could I have a motion to move the agenda, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Councillor Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, I say Deputy Warden. My gosh, we're batting 1,000 here on the little buttons and getting everything. All right, goodness. All right, maybe the wind has us unsettled this evening, but anyway, the agenda has been approved by through motion by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Okay. The next item then are the review of the minutes. The first is from the public hearing of December 14th, 2023. They've been provided to you in your meeting package. Are there any errors or omissions on the minutes? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion on the public hearing minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? That motion is carried. The next item are the regular council minutes from November 20th, 2023. If there's no error or omissions, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, so the next item is our question period for prior to our committee reports. So we're going to just give it a minute to see if there are any questions that come in by phone, or if folks from the gallery have any questions, you can come on up to the table and the microphone. You just press the red button. For those at home, the phone number to call is 902-226-9885. That's 902-226-9885. And we're just going to give that a minute. All right, okay, so it's a little quiet, so we'll move on to the committee reports. And the first is our Committee of the Whole report, and I'm going to hand things over to the Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So, Committee of the Whole report for December 2023. The committee met on December 7th, 2023. The committee discussed the Extended Producer Responsibility, EPR, for packaging, paper products, and packaging-like products, PPP, regulations. I move that Council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to support the recommendation from staff to register for the new industry-led EPR for PPP program.
Just put a motion on the table. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
I just have to declare a conflict before we go to the next item, Warden.
Okay.
I'm going to declare a conflict. So I will declare that I do have a conflict as I prepare the financials, so.
Thank you. Councillor Melanie Sampson has declared conflict on this next item from our Committee of the Whole report. Could I have, I'll pass things over to Deputy Warden then.
The committee discussed the grant request from the Almaden Food Bank for the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $1,000 to $2,000. I move that Council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to approve the grant request for Almaden Food Bank, Stella Maris Pastoral Unit, for the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $1,500 and be allocated as follows: $750 from the District 1 Fund and $750 from the District 2 funds.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Digdon has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried. So, Councillor Melanie, you can come back in. Thank you. Deputy Warden, back over to you.
The committee discussed the sale of property PID number 7501444654. I move that Council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to accept the recommendation of the Revenue Manager and CFO, and that Council authorize the Revenue Manager and CFO to sell property number 01525956 at the February 9, 2004 tax sale for the minimum acceptable bids as discussed in camera.
Thanks, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Is there any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion is carried. We'll register the nay vote.
This concludes the Committee of the Whole report for the month of December 2023, and I move its adoption.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder, please?
I will second.
The motion's been seconded by Councillor Melanie Sampson. Any further discussion on the Committee of the Whole report? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda, we're going to move on to our Bylaw and Policy Committee reports. And I'll hand things back over to you, Deputy Warden, if that's okay, to cover off that particular report.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Yep. So, Bylaw Policy Committee report for December 7th of 2023. The committee met on December 7th, 2023. The committee discussed the members at large applications. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Bylaw Policy Committee to appoint Peter Gott as the member at large for the Bylaw Policy Committee.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Yeah, so I think we will, I guess we'll ask for a seconder on the motion, and then we'll refer over to staff for some discussion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Maybe, CAO, if I could ask you to comment, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Warden. Just as an update, as was directed, an offer was made to that person, and things had changed since they applied, and they could no longer fulfill that role. So luckily for us, we had multiple applicants. We reached out to the alternate applicant, and she has graciously allowed her name to stand, and she'd be happy to fill that role. We just need a motion so that we can work with her to add her to our committee.
Thank you, Troy. Thanks, Troy. So the motion would be, first we would need to vote on the current motion, and then we'll need to make a new motion to accept Stacey Morrison as the appointed community member to the Bylaw and Policy Committee meeting. So we'll call for the vote, but knowing that, the other candidate that could not let his name stand. So all those in favor of the current motion, please say aye. Those opposed? Nay. Okay, that motion has been defeated. So now I'd look for someone to make a motion to accept Stacey Morrison as the appointed community member.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Is there any further discussion on that? I just want to say welcome, Stacey. She's with us in the gallery this evening. So nice to meet you and welcome aboard. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, folks, thank you, Troy, and staff for your work on that as well. So the next motion or item on the agenda is regarding the second reading. We're seeking approval for the second reading of the Richmond Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw. And I know at the public hearing that there had been some discussion. So I'm, I guess at this point, wondering if there's a councillor who would like to make a motion to approve that second reading. If there is, we can do it in one of two ways: approve it as is, approve it with a non-substantive change, or if we don't approve it this evening, then what will happen is the bylaw will go back to first reading at our meeting in January, and we'll still be finished up in time for our end of March deadline on that. So is there a councillor who is interested in making a motion on the approval of the second reading of the Richmond Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw? Okay. So we will take this back for first reading, and certainly really appreciate, again, the members of the public who provided some input at our public hearing, and looking forward to some revision on that and having it back on our agenda for January. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is new business. It's regarding the Gillis subdivision in St. Peters. And so information on this item has been provided in your package in a memo from, I believe it was our Public Works folks, EDPC, thank you. Yeah, sorry, brain cramped there. But yeah, so this item is essentially a quick claim on a particular item, and I see Melanie, Councillor Melanie.
Yes, as we discussed before, I'll excuse myself from this conversation as well, just for personal conflict. Okay. Yes, I feel like I'm going to have a path to the door.
That's what happens when you're involved in your community sometimes, I guess, right? Okay, so essentially what's being proposed is that, is a quick claim on piece of property, to which Richmond County has an easement across a piece of particular property, and I guess at this point in the game, it doesn't really serve a purpose to us. Maybe CAO McCulloch, I don't know if you want to add any context?
Yep, very quickly, there was an old plan in St. Peter's that was called the St. Gillies or Gillies Plan, and that's from 150 years ago, and the roads there never really stuck to that plan, but that plan still exists on title on some of the properties over there. So this is just cleaning up an old road plan that was registered that never got built because other streets got developed around it, such as Denny Street and Toulouse Street and those guys. So this street is just on title only on a document, and the land is about to change hands, and they don't want that this registration on title to affect the sale. The province walked away from all of these claims because they had easements and the like as well back in 2007, I believe it was, when they took care of theirs. We still have a few of these that are outstanding. So it's just a little piece of a little road that never got developed, that doesn't exist, that just needs to come off the title.
Okay. All right, thanks, Troy. And I hopefully if there's more of these, in the weeds out there, we'll be able to find them. We certainly don't want things like that to hold up any potential housing developments, that type of thing. But okay, so I guess at this point we'd be looking for a motion to approve the quit claim on PID 75190231.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Could I have a seconder on that?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion on this item?
Madam Warden, I just on that piece of property, so was it directed to the individual, like, I guess, was it put out to the public or put out to the village, or was it just directly?
So the property, sorry. My understanding is the property is privately owned, but there's an easement across it. The private owner wants to sell the piece of land to a new owner. The county doesn't have an ownership interest in the actual property because, aside from the easement, because it's owned privately. So the easement is holding up the sale of the property. So it's not a piece of land that's owned by the municipality, so we would not put it out to tender, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, or the easement doesn't affect anybody in the surrounding, does it? Like, I guess I understand that the easement passes through the property, but does it affect anybody on either side? Or is anybody affected by us selling that easement would be?
Yeah, so to our knowledge, no, because there's no road there, right? It's just an easement that was established in case someday a road might be established.
Just to be clear, just so I'm clear on it too. So we're not selling anything. We're getting rid of that easement. That's all. We're removing. Yeah, we're removing that. Okay.
Yeah.
We're just removing a note that's on the document.
Okay.
There's nothing material that exists.
Right. And I just want, and that, I'm glad we clarified that. I just, again, knowing if I was the guy next door, knowing that the county of Richmond had an easement going through, may make changes, I guess, or I don't know how to word it without, as long as there's an easement, then I know that the property owner may not be able to do something with that property or do something to affect me because the county of Richmond had an easement going through. So if he owns both parcels and the easement goes through, then really it would make a difference. But if it's on the boundary of somebody else's property, that's what I'm asking, does it affect that person next?
There was nothing brought up by either legal or EDPC that this should have any negative effect on anyone.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion? So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, so I had a couple of items on the agenda. Thank you. You can welcome back, Councillor Melanie. I had a couple of items on the agenda that I just wanted to take a moment to provide an update to Council on. The first was our Straight Richmond Housing Coalition, Straight Richmond Housing Matters Coalition update. As you know, that's an organization that's been on the go for quite a few years now. I currently chair it with great support from several volunteers around that table. Recently, we met, I believe it was last week, and just I wanted to kind of bring up a couple of items that I guess have landed front and center on our agenda. And, I know I have the Connecting the Dots Poverty Conference there as well. But I wanted to mention specifically that, currently there are a number of volunteers around that table. Some of those volunteers include our housing support workers for the region, and they are employed by an organization called Cape Breton Community Housing Association, I believe. It's based out of the Sydney area. And I know in June, we had plans for their CEO, our director, Fred DeVoe, to come and present to our council. I think there were some scheduling conflicts and then things, it didn't happen in June for us. And then, of course, summer hit. So I'm thinking we may want to ask him. I'm going to restart that conversation to see if he would like to come back. We do have currently 2 housing support workers in the region, and really grateful for that work. But I think it would be a great opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about the scope of what they do here, and what some of the challenges are that they're facing. I do want to take a minute to do a shout out and a quick kudos to both Lisa McHugh and Chloe Fox for their work. In the last 10 months alone, they have been able to get approvals for housing and rent subsidies for 75 people in the last 10 months. That's a huge undertaking. It's a big piece of work. So, I had in my notes from the meeting, as of 8:45 a.m. on Wednesday morning, they're saving tenants in our area over $18,000 per month collectively. That's a big, big deal, in a community that has its fair share of vulnerable folks on fixed incomes, et cetera. They also noted that they are able to find places, I won't say easy, but easier now than compared to a year ago because of the relationships that they've been able to establish with landlords and, landlords reaching out to them when properties become available. So I just want to say kudos to both Lisa and Chloe for the work that they're doing. The reality is that they're providing this service in a very rural area of Cape Breton, which means they have to do a lot of traveling to meet people where they are and to find solutions for folks. So also wanted to do a shout out to Cheryl McDaniel, who is our representative on the Nova Scotia Nonprofit Housing Association. That's a brand new organization that has recently been put together through, actually it was spearheaded through the Build Together project based out of Antigonish. They've hired a program and membership coordinator. They have a new executive director, and they have over 60 members, of which Straight Richmond Housing Matters Coalition is one. And I know that Cheryl has been representing us very well at that provincial level, which I think keeps us really in tune with the potential programs and opportunities for partnerships that are coming up. And those were the 2 highlights that I really wanted to kind of pick up out of the Housing Matters Coalition. The notes are there for your review. And certainly if you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear them and do my best to answer, although everybody else around that table is a whole lot smarter than I am when it comes to the housing issue, and I am so impressed by their work, but I can refer questions anywhere. So does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. The second item then, I wanted to just provide, and I know it was quite a lot in the package on the Connecting the Dots conference that happened I guess it was in Port Hawkesbury recently. It was by all accounts, an incredible experience for the folks who attended. There was a lot of very heartfelt conversation that happened at our Housing Matters Coalition table about that conference in particular. One of the reasons I wanted to highlight it is because one of the outcomes that has come from it is a formula food drive. If I'm getting the terminology correctly, but essentially what's been identified by folks in the health sector, public health officials, and and people who work with very vulnerable populations, is that there is a shortage or I guess a scarcity of formula that people are able to purchase in many cases to feed their infants. This, I think, took everybody by it was like shock is the word I would use to describe it, but there are infants in our communities right now who don't have enough to eat. And so this formula food drive was an idea that has kind of come up over time, and want to maybe just bring that to folks' attention, because I think we can get really wrapped up in what we think of as housing challenges and poverty challenges, but it certainly has many, many more dimensions than what I originally thought, for sure. So I've learned a lot from that group, and there's some really great slides in the package that kind of give some information about that. And it is the Community Health Board that's actually doing that formula food drive, and it's coming up in the new year. So I've asked to stay connected to that, and we'll certainly circulate that information to council. I will also mention that that they had. That Straight Richmond Housing Matters Coalition, we did participate with a poster board. We couldn't be there in person, but they had some really great keynotes, and those heavy themes like learning about food insecurity for infants in our community. It was certainly, I guess, the highlights of the day, and their focus really was on figuring out what we need to do. Or what do we need our decision makers to know about in order to impact the systems change that we need to have, because 25 years later, we're still having these conversations. So we'll just put that thought in folks' mind. Please open for questions if you have any. I wasn't at the event, but want to say a huge kudos to the organizers, and I know any questions that we may have, they would be more than happy to answer. So, any questions on that item? Okay, so hearing none, I will stay tuned for information on that food drive, though, and make sure that we kind of spread the word about it as much as possible. So, all right. So the next item on the agenda is is under the deputy warden, and he wanted to have a conversation regarding mayors and wardens. And I did provide a little one-pager that was right out of the guide for new municipal councillors that kind of gave a little description on some of the duties. So, Deputy Warden, over to you if you'd like to kind of speak to that.
Yep, thank you, Madam Warden. So, I mean, for me, Madam Warden, this question has been lurking for many years now, right? And I guess it seems now that it's going to be a question to have answered with council's next term, right? And looking ahead to the 2028 election. But back in 2019, during part of the strategic plan, that topic was brought up, and there was a survey online that showed that 76% of residents that took that survey were in favor of a mayor. But being that that change had to be implemented 9 months before the municipal election, I think time had ran out on that situation, so it was never followed up on. But for me, I think looking back at our recent boundary review, if we learned anything from our boundary review, is that we shouldn't solely rely on a survey or just a yes or no answer to a question. So for me, I think we have to take the same approach. I mean, when you look at the boundary review, when the first couple of surveys came out, I think the popular support was for 7 councillors instead of 5. But then we all had some public consultations, and we engaged the public, and after those engagements and those public consultations, it went to 5 councillors and status quo with a few minor changes to some of our districts. And for me, I think looking forward to our last year in term and looking forward to the 2028 election, I think we got to take that same approach when it comes to the mayor versus warden question. I think I'm going to do my part, and I think we should all do our part to engage the public and inform the public of what that actually means, what the 2 options mean, and then it'll be more of a yes or no survey answer, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. And, in my opinion, I think it's an approach that we should take in the future, and make sure that we engage our residents, engage the people of Richmond County, and make sure that they have all the information needed to look at that question, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Does anyone have any questions for Sean on that item?
Yeah, I guess, more of a reply, I guess, to Sean than a question was the, guy actually had people look at it on the agenda and then call me right away to see why we were looking at even considering that, and I said, well, it really wasn't a consideration of council, it was just a question brought by a constituent, so I think they, and, I guess to add on to his, I think what we have to do is remind the voters that voted us in our seat that they did so for a reason, and usually it's to speak on their behalf. So again, I agree with the reaching back out to the public and finding out as opposed to just putting out a survey of why you think it should be. And I think we also want to remind them that when we do that, we have to take our time in setting up that survey because one thing that I don't know if people realize, but when you go to the mayor versus warden, you can't go back. And another thing is that you could actually have 5 representatives potentially from one district. Depending really, because nobody knows, and depending on it's a vote of numbers, not so much a vote of your district.
So, yeah, Councillor Digdon, it depends on how it's implemented. I know in some towns that many of the councillors there are councillors at large. They do not have districts, but in some of the larger, like the CBRM, for example, they do have councillors in districts, plus also a mayor. So I think it just depends on how it gets rolled out. But you are correct. You know, once you make the decision to make the switch, you can't go back, kind of thing. Yeah. Thank you for that, pointing that out. Yeah, Deputy Warden.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at our boundary review that we just got approved from the UARB board, so I mean, in 2028, residents need to know that there will be 5 councillors and a mayor if they vote to go that way. So, when it came to the public consultations and information sessions, they more or less voted status quo, 5 councillors. But people have to be informed to know that this boundary review is not changing until the 2032 election. So in 2028, if they decide to go with a mayor, it's going to mean 5 councillors and a mayor, right? So that's what that would mean.
Yeah, I think on the mandated review is only 8 years is the point Councillor Sampson is making. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So in 2028. Yeah. So in 2028, if they do decide, that we're going to put the mayor in place, or the residents feel they want to have a mayor, it's going to mean 6 people around this table, not 5, right?
Yeah, potentially. I think at the end of the day, the point you're both making is that it's a complex matter. It's not a simple yes or no, right? And so that kind of community engagement would be really key in making sure that we're making a determination that is in the best interest of the county and that reflects the desires of the constituent voters that are here. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, so, and another thing that the residents have to realize as well, and again, this will all be brought out, but we're elected as district representatives, but we cannot run both options. So if I decide to run for mayor, or anybody around this table decides to run for mayor, that means they're not representing that district. It means they're representing the entire county, right? So just so people are aware. But again, we'll save that for a public discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. And that's a really great point, is that, if you have multiple candidates for mayor, they're not attached to a specific district. And so if you don't win the mayoral seat, you are not at the council table, right? And that is a consideration as well, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up and just putting it on our radar again. I think it's a healthy discussion for us to be having periodically. So, okay, the next item on the agenda then is correspondence. There was nothing under action required, but we had a few pieces of, communication regarding The first was regarding the Vulnerable Person Registry resolution, and that was from Deputy Minister Byron Rayfuse with Municipal Affairs and Housing. That was a reply back to the letter that we had sent, asking the province to consider establishing the registry. And of course, they are feeling like that is more of a municipal responsibility. But you know, we'll keep having that discussion with them, and hopefully we can find a resolution on it. The next item was a letter from Greg Henley, the town of Oxford, regarding the letter of request to the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault for an exemption to the volunteer emergency service providers from the new fuel charges. And thirdly was the Build Nova Scotia update on Internet for Nova Scotia initiative. And I certainly wanted to add that onto the agenda when I saw it come through my email, because I know it's a burning issue for many people in our county. So were there any questions on any of those items? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the review of the action items. Again, this is for information only. Were there any questions on the action items from council? Okay. And since there's no questions from councillors on the action items, we'll move to items added to the agenda, and I believe it's over to you, Councillor Sampson, for a Christmas greeting.
Thank you very much. Just a quick note too, in all seriousness before we begin, wishing everybody a happy holidays, Merry Christmas. It can be a very difficult time of year for some people as well, and there's been recently launched a new suicide prevention hotline of 988. So just on a more serious note, maybe we could place that on the county website for anybody having difficulty, as the holidays can be a tough time. Christmas 2023. 'Twas the week before Christmas, while at our last meeting, the council had asked me to write a new greeting. Now in our last year, the countdown was on. The campaigning never stops for Deputy Sean. Troy is still here, and we're thankful to him. His schedule is quite often packed to the brim. Shelley is doing well in her role. Dealing with politicians can take quite a toll. If the roads are so bad that they're not safe to drive, you can now call Michael at 631-0975. The warden was dreaming of green hydrogen. Do you know how hard it is to rhyme hydrogen? Melanie is hoping the new arena stays near. The St. Peter's location is her biggest fear. A poem next year, I can't guarantee. 12 months from now, who knows where we'll be. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you, Councillor. We missed that last year, so appreciate you bringing it back. All right. I'm noting the time. I think our meeting in camera, beginning of meeting in camera is working strategy. I'm hearing the wind howling out there, and we're coming up to 20 to 8, so yeah, and we'll move into question period. This is restricted to the remainder of the agenda, the items on the remainder of the agenda following the committee reports. If there are any members of the gallery, you can approach the table at the microphone and press the button, or you can call in from home, 902-226-9885. It's 902-226-9885. So we'll just give that a minute. I'm thinking I probably should have brought in my front deck decorations.
No, they'll be back deck.
They're going to be on the back deck after this, but yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm not hearing the phone ring. I'm really conscious of that delay for the folks watching at home. I just want to give them a minute. This is our last opportunity to have a call in before the Christmas break. So, but I'm hearing it's pretty quiet. So I do want to just wish everyone very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whichever however you celebrate. I hope it's a wonderful one, filled with family and friends. I would like to take a minute too to say a special thank you to Troy and Shelley and all of the staff here who are making our lives so much easier by, doing all the hard work and heavy lifting in between our council meetings and committee meetings. I know it's endless. And the action item list is also endless. So we really appreciate everything you do. All right. Okay, well, thank you. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. And there being no further business, we're going to adjourn the meeting for the last meeting for 2023. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching at home.